On today's Chasing the Game, we have Anthony Wayne baseball coach Ryan Donley. We talk about his career, his journey to becoming head baseball coach, and check in on this year's team. Chasing the Game starts right now. All right, welcome into Chasing the Game. Anthony Wayne's Ryan Donley is here. Ryan, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you coming in and just talking about the season. You guys are what, like 9-3 right now in the year, 5-1 in conference. Just what's the energy like in the locker room?
Real good. You know, we've got a veteran group. We've been competing well. We've juiced up the schedule a little bit this year. So we've played some really tough competition. The Northern Lakes League, in my opinion, is the best league in the state of Ohio. So that's always a test, you know, but we went down to Myrtle Beach. We played some good competition down there and coming back. And our kids are competing at a high level and our pitching staff's giving us a chance to win. Hitting's starting to come around. So, yeah, we're happy with where we're at and still have some room for improvement, but we're good right now. So. Yeah,
you guys were the preseason #1 team in Division II, according to the Ohio High School Baseball Writers Association. You guys play, like you said, in a really tough conference. You know, Northview won a state championship a few years ago. Perrysburg got to a state championship a few years ago. You guys got to a state championship. Can you speak more to just how difficult it is to play in the Northern Lakes League?
Yeah, so when you look at, I'll go back to when I first came in. I have a picture on my phone. Northview smacked us pretty good, 13-0 at their place. And I'm like, man, I don't know if this is the right thing for me or what. And they didn't even win our league that year. And then we get to the playoff run, and Northview wins a state title. They actually eliminated us from that too. We lost them 3 times that year, and they go on and win a state title, and they didn't win the Northern Lakes League. And I thought, this is crazy. My only experience there was I had coached Caleb Yates, state championship wrestler. And Caleb won the state title at 106 pounds in 2015, and probably one of my greatest sports moments I've ever been a part of, by the way. But Caleb was the Northern Lakes League runner-up because I bumped him up a weight class, and he was game for it. But he lost in the finals of Northern Lakes League, and I thought, man, this is really crazy that Northview won it and didn't win the league. The only time I'd been there was with a wrestler who also was in the same boat. You know, and then we make it. We ended up winning the league in 23, but we make the Final Four. And then the following year, Perrysburg makes the state, the state Final Four, and they didn't win the league. They were 4th in the league, and they make the Final Four. So for 3 years in a row, 22, 23, and 24, the Northern Lakes League's been represented in the Final Four, and 2 of the 3 times the team that was there didn't even win our conference. So it just speaks to the depth and the parity within, and you got to bring it every time you take the field in the Northern Lakes League.
Yeah, it's almost as if you don't want to win the league. That's a better omen.
No, you do.
I mean, you do, but like it's a better omen almost. It feels like you're going to make a deeper tournament run.
Yeah.
You touched on a lot of great things there. Can you just speak about the culture of Anthony Wayne baseball? You obviously inherited a very good program, and people are obsessed with baseball out in Anthony Wayne. I mean, they are in a lot of places, but Anthony Wayne has had this great tradition of baseball. Can you just speak about the culture of Anthony Wayne?
Yeah, so, I knew it was deep, when I was close to the program. Coach Mark Nell, was the head coach for 22 years and did a phenomenal job. And I coached for him at the freshman level. Just the structure, the discipline, everything that was in place was just so great. And when I got the opportunity to apply for the job, when he stepped aside, it felt like the right time. So I got in there, and we had our bumps early on. There were some things that I had to learn, so the kids had to learn my style in comparison to Coach Nell's and things. But it's crazy the similarities that he had when he was coaching Anthony Wayne, and what I've tried to instill in our guys. And it's at the end of the day, it's built on a strong culture. It's a strong baseball community. And I'm just trying to keep it going, and I feel like, our assistant coaches, I've surrounded myself with really, really good guys that really care about kids and development of kids. And I've said oftentimes that baseball is just the vehicle we're using to try to build productive citizens and young adults. And we've got good guys in place, as did Coach Nell, and we're just keeping a good thing going right now.
Yeah, this is your 4th season now, so it's been a full generation of kids under Donley and not under Nell. Do you feel like you've made that transition well?
Absolutely, yeah, I do. And with Coach Nell teaching at the junior high, our kids still know him and respect him, and we talk about that a lot, about being respectful to our opponents and things. And I think he's a little closer to the program, having given his background and everything. But there's not a kid in our program right now that played under him. So they are into our system and what we're doing, and completely bought in. And I would say that about all of our sports right now. The buy-in in athletics in Anthony Wayne right now is extremely high. And I think that's why we're having the success we're having.
Yeah, I remember just being there as a high schooler. Anthony Wayne, was successful in a few things, but it wasn't to the level that it is now. I mean,
Sure.
I feel like like you said, there's so much buy-in. There just seems to be so much success at all these different sports now. So it's really insane to see. I mean, going back to Yates was like the only state champion that we had in that time.
Yeah.
Before that, it was like the softball team in 2003. But after that, people weren't making state championship runs. People weren't getting to Final Fours the way that some of these sports did. You've been there at Anthony Wayne for 20 years now,
Yep.
right? Is it crazy to think about how much the programs have developed over the last 20 years?
It is, but iron sharpens iron, and I can use the wrestling experience. When Christian Yates made it as an alternate, and then I think his brothers saw that, and Cameron had over 100 wins, and Caleb makes the state tournament and wins it. Then his drill partner, Cody Mosman, goes and the very next year makes the state semis, an all-state wrestler, and ends up going to Cleveland State. The following year, the group of three, Nick Schneider makes it, who at the time was the only Anthony Wayne athlete that made the state tournament in 3 sports. He made it in football in the Final Four in 2016, and then he made the state tournament in wrestling, and then 2018 made the final championship game in baseball. So it was just, I think that when you see it can be done, other kids find motivation in that, and I think that's what's happening right now is that we know that it's possible, and I think that our coaches have done a phenomenal job. Our athletic directors and our administration has supported us in finding and seeking out the toughest competition in the state and around the country in some cases, and we've gone and done that and not been afraid to play, and I think we're reaping the benefits of that, and our athletes we're not afraid of the name on the jersey anymore. We're ready to go and compete with anybody, and sometimes it works out in our favor and sometimes it doesn't, but either way we get back in the lab and get back to work.
Yeah. You were a multi-sport athlete in school. You went to Clay, right?
That's correct.
So what was that like? Was baseball always, the sport that you were the most passionate about, or was it a mix of the three? What was it?
Yeah, it was always, I was one of the kids that whatever season was in was my favorite sport. Fall would roll around and football was always my favorite. And then wrestling, season was always a thing in our household. And, and obviously with baseball. I would tell you, my dad played football and wrestled at Kentucky. So that was kind of the primary thing. And I think that, as I'm older, I appreciate how my dad and I, in our relationship, and how he pushed me, because I think he saw a lot in me. I'm really appreciative of that relationship. But in the spring, I remember being a high school kid, and Dad wasn't a baseball guy, so it was like, hey man, a good game today, Timmy pitched well, like, hey, you want to fire up the grill? And it was like, oh, Dad's really cool in the spring. Like, I think this baseball thing is pretty awesome, But no, it was good. I just loved it, and I had a really good mentor and a coach in Carl Knierim. Can't thank him enough for what he's done for me and just shaping me and just the side conversations and things that Coach Knierim did as I was coming up through. It just really brought me into the sport of baseball. And I think that there's aspects of football that I really liked. There's the individuality aspect of wrestling that I really liked. And really in baseball, you get the best of both worlds. It's a team game, but every pitch starts with a one-on-one pitcher against hitter. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's what it is or not, but I just really gravitated towards the sport. And then I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to play in college and for a cup of coffee after that. And it was just something that I really enjoyed, and it's kind of shaped me, and as have the others, but baseball is really something I've hung on to.
Yeah, what was that recruiting process like to go to Indiana? Were they the only school that were looking at you? What was that like?
Yeah, I wasn't very good. I mean, honestly, I hustled, I played really hard. Really crazy story that how I ended up there. There was the coach at the time, Scott Guggens, came to watch. I had no idea. I was going to go somewhere else small, maybe football and baseball, and kind of ruled wrestling out at the time. And so next thing you know, Indiana's at a game. I have no idea why they're there. I had a really good game against Fremont Ross that day, and the head coach comes out. And it was crazy then. He put me through an entire workout after Coach Morgan came out and watched. And I had a pretty good workout, and he offered me a scholarship that we could do, and I ended up going to Indiana, and I'm thrilled because it happened in a very short amount of time. Come to find out, there was a police officer that sat in center field of every game that I played in high school. I was an Oregon police officer, Mike Belsick, and he watched our games. And he, later on, I found out, was the roommate with Coach Morgan in Indiana. And he said, hey, I've got a kid here that plays the game the right way. I think he'll fit your mold. You need to come take a look. So Coach finally got sick of Mr. Belsick calling him. So he ended up going out and and taking a look. And fortunately enough, I had a good day when they were there, and they offered me a scholarship, and the rest is history. So yeah, it wasn't like I was a highly recruited guy. It was like they say, you never know who's watching. I was a 100% example of that. There was a Oregon police officer that watched our games from center field, and he called his roommate with the Tigers, and who happened to be the head coach at Indiana, and that's where I ended up.
And so that was your senior year? That was like you were almost...
I didn't sign until end of May my senior year.
And then a couple of months later, you're like on campus in Bloomington, and you're playing baseball in the Big Ten.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It was wild. It was wild.
So what were those 4 years like? I mean, did you get to, play as much as you wanted to? I mean, I'm not able to go back and look at like stats or video.
I did. I my freshman year, I DH'd and played a little bit of right field, kind of righty-lefty matchups. There was another guy I was competing with, was a left-handed hitter. And so, I was in the lineup quite a bit, traveled and everything as my freshman year. I didn't redshirt or anything. And, it was kind of I kind of won the job and hung around. And so I was a captain my senior year and everything. So, it was a really, I wouldn't have traded it for the world. It was the one, 4 best years, 4.5 best years of that I can remember of sport and everything with my career, and lifelong friends. I mean, guys that now at 42 years old, we still talk daily. My time in Bloomington, I wouldn't have traded for the world. Yeah. We played Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and their third baseman, Luke Creighton, just committed to IU. And so when we played them at our place last week, we had kind of a nice moment, he and I talking, just wished him the best of luck, told him you're going to love Bloomington. Not to plug IU too much, but man, what a great place.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you on, someone told me this, but were you on one of those NCAA baseball games? Is your name in?
Yeah, like somebody, so I don't play video games, but somebody told me I'm on there. Yeah, and the kids give me a hard time sometimes. So I guess my ratings are kind of like the kids turn very mid.
You mentioned a cup of coffee. You were in the Frontier League for a season, right?
Yeah,
what was that like that 1 year?
Good. It was fine. It was something I was hanging on and just seeing if something was there. I was hoping to get drafted, wasn't drafted. There was a couple phone calls of, was I going to go to Staten Island or maybe get picked up by the Yankees organization in free agency or something. It never happened. Just never came to. I ended up playing in the Frontier League just to hang on, and then I realized that, long story short, my principal in Clay was the director of curriculum and personnel at Anthony Wayne, Rick Heinchel. And Mom ran into him at Kroger and was like, how's Ryan doing? You say, well, he's looking for a place to student teach, and then hooked me up with Steve Mossing, who to this day has been a mentor of mine. And I know Mr. Mossing, and just a legend at Anthony Wayne. Mm-hmm. And I got connected with Steve Mossing, and it was one of those reality things, like I can keep chasing this baseball dream that's probably going to end, whether it's my choice or not, or I can start my career at 22 years old and 23. And so that's what I did, and I got into student teaching with Mr. Mossing, and that was in the spring of '05, and I've been at Anthony Wayne since. So I did my student teaching at Anthony Wayne as well. Yeah,
so I guess it just made perfect sense then to go do that. What was that like, those years where you're having to balance, Anthony Wayne, football, Anthony Wayne wrestling, and being involved in baseball? How to do all that? I mean, you worked some long days, I understand.
Oh yeah. I spent a lot of time there, and I love it. I do. I love it. I bet the family probably sacrificed a little bit at times, and I have a daughter, Maisie, who's a freshman now, and there were some times I'm sure that she would rather had not been in a wrestling gym or in the stands on a rainy, cold Friday night. But no, there's a lot of support, and my wife Andrea now, the same thing. She's just super supportive and everything that I'm doing coaching wise, and it couldn't be done. The behind the scenes stuff with the family, it's the spouses and the kids that really buy in and allow myself and others that are in my boat to do it. But yeah, there were some long days there with coaching football and with Coach Smith, and then going right into being the head coach of wrestling, and then helping a little bit with Coach Nell on the freshman level. But it was long days, but I wouldn't have traded for the world. It was good.
Yeah. You told me the story years ago. Did you do summer baseball against Ben Roethlisberger? Was that back in the day that you played against him?
So Ben and I, we graduated in 2000. So I went to Clay, he went to Findlay, and that was the former Great Lakes League. It's no longer. But they had the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, the FCA, and so he represented Findlay, I represented Anthony Wayne. And so, yeah, we competed against each other and had been to some of those meetings and things like that, just like any other kids now, like Anthony Wayne kid knows a Perrysburg kid, whatever. So, yeah, we had graduated the same year and had been in the same, ran in the same circles at times. But, yeah, that's about it there. So.
Did you know that he was going to be kind of the great athlete? Was he hyped?
He was a freak. Yeah. He was so good. He was so good. Nasty shortstop, in baseball, which maybe people don't know. Very good baseball player. Obviously football, he played receiver for the first 3 years, which was, behind Ryan Height, who again played at Denison. Ryan Height, Coach Height, who I love to this day. Every time I see him, he gives me a big hug. He actually, little brother thing at Kentucky. He played at Kentucky when my dad was there. So there was a connection that way with Coach Height. But no, Finley was loaded at the time. And then Ben was a senior year, played quarterback. And I think we lost that game maybe 49-35, I think, something like that. And Ben had 7 touchdown passes. What are we going to do with this guy? But yeah, I didn't know he was going to be what he was. But yeah, he's been next level.
Yeah.
Forever. He's just that guy. You could just tell.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier Caleb Yates, one of the guys that got to the state championship. We have a soundbite actually from that day. That was 10 years ago now. Yeah. Let's hear that. This is Caleb Yates after winning a state championship.
Can't explain this feeling. Worked so hard for it my whole life. I've been dreaming about it since I started wrestling in 6th grade. And it's unreal. I can't believe it's here.
And so the people who were vigilant in the background, they could see you jumping out. Can you just take us back through that moment, when he becomes a state champion? Anthony Wayne has a state champion for the first time in years.
Yeah, first time ever. First and only state champ wrestler that we've had. We were getting ready to leave on Wednesday. We had a workout set up at Ohio State that night. And I pull up in the school van, and I had my suit hanging. And the assistant coaches looked at me, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I said, "We wear a suit in the finals." Like, come on, man. I said, no, I don't know. I just have a hunch. Like, he's different. The kid's different. And to this day, I love him to death, and that was a moment that I'll never forget. He just had a motor that, Caleb wasn't afraid to fail, and he would go. And it didn't matter who he was wrestling. He was going to give it what he had, and I knew that he had a fighter's chance. And, he had, his first match, he won in overtime. Then he had a pretty easy quarterfinal match. If there is an easy match, the state tournament, he kind of cruised through that one and won 8-3. And then I don't know if this has ever happened. He won 1-0 in the semifinal against Devon Edwards from Lorain in the craziest match, 0-0. These kids wrestled in real time for like what felt like an eternity, but I think it was something like 17 minutes or something. And Caleb won on a caution call. It was essentially a false start. And he got 1 point. So neither wrestler scored an offensive point in the entire thing. So he makes the final, and it was 2-2. I told Coach Reese, Ernie Reese, who's now coaching back at Anthony Wayne at wrestling with Coach Nicely, and they're both doing a great job. And I told Ernie, I said, we're going to have to let him go. We're not going to lose the state title by 1. We have to give Caleb a chance to take him down. I think we got to let this guy go. And they went out of bounds, and Caleb kind of mat returned him. And Bracken Mead, who wrestled at Ohio State, kid was phenomenal. Bracken laid down and kind of did one of these with his shoulder. And Caleb looked back at him, and I looked. I'm like, hey, we got to let him up. And he goes, did one of these, like we're keeping him down. And the next restart, Caleb bar half, rolled him through and pinned him. And it was the first fall in the state finals since 2010. So Caleb won it in 15. So in 5 years, it was the first pin that had happened in the state final. And I straight Tommy Boy'd that suit jacket. I don't know if you guys caught that. I went one of these. They ripped the whole arm out of it. I didn't care. It was fine. It was whatever. But it's just such a great moment for him and his family. And his mom, Michelle, just worked so hard for all their boys. And I couldn't have been more proud of him, and just the whole thing, our school and everything. And then not long after that, Maddie Pollard goes and starts winning track state, in the shot and disc, and another Indiana person, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was kind of the first little thing that I had been part of at Anthony Wayne, and I'll never forget it for as long as I live.
Yeah. You guys got to the state finals, right, in 23? Do I remember that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So you guys.
We lost the Final Four game in extra innings.
Yeah. What's it like trying to get back to that point? Obviously, you guys, lose to St. Francis last year. I was at that game. What's the kind of journey like to get back to that point? Is that the standard for you guys, is to get back to there?
Yeah, I think so. You're constantly training to make, the state final and win a state title. And then things like a league title, district, regional, like those things happen along the way. But the ultimate goal is to win a state championship, and that's what we train for. And when you look at Northwest Ohio in baseball in particular, I know the divisions have changed and gone to 7 and everything, so it's a little bit watered down, some say. But when we're looking at it the other day, and we're still going to be in a district with the likes of Northview and Clay and Anthony Wayne and St. John's, and you got Start and Waite.
These are all top 20 teams, yeah.
Yeah, so there's no easy road. You have to pay your dues, and I've been asked several times about this year's team, and I thought we have some talented ball players, we have some experience, we've got a veteran pitching staff, which helps. But it comes down to, are you tough enough to win 3-2? And with the easy games, when everything's going good and things are great, and those games are kind of easy to win, and you just kind of settle in. But when maybe you don't have your best stuff, or the bats are a little cold, and can you manufacture a run? Can you get a bunt down? Can you move runners? And can you make a pitch when you have to in full, base loaded, full count kind of thing? And that's going to be the separator. I think who handles those moments, who makes plays, who's fundamentally sound. But yeah, the ultimate goal is to get back to the Final Four and to win a state title. And in order to do that, we're going to have to really go through the fire. And I think that we've prepared our guys to do that. It's just a matter of executing. And I tell them 3 things before every time they take the field: practice, game, doesn't matter, is play hard, play fast, and have fun. Yeah. And if we do those things well, I think we have a chance.
Yeah, Owen Graff committed to Ohio State.
Yeah.
Where does he rank for you in terms? You've had a lot of talented guys come through. I mean, Garrett Pike, Curry, all these guys.
Yeah.
Where does he stand? Is he in that class of guys?
Yeah, so I didn't coach Garrett in baseball. I did coach him a little bit in football, but I was around him enough to know that Garrett Pike's a freak in a good way. He's just so good, and he was State Player of the Year, rightfully so. And I think that to classify that, Owen's got some work to do in order to get into that company. I think Curry absolutely has done well in his freshman year at Toledo. I think he just picked. I just saw something on Twitter. He was, I think, 5 2/3, no runs, 2 hits this week. He picked up a win. He's just doing really good things. Owen, I think his ceiling is so high, and projectability. His stuff plays, and it plays the next level. I think that the difference with Owen is, for a lot of really good and really talented players, they know that, and they then maybe lack in some of the discipline of their work ethic. And we almost have to slow Owen down, because he's so hungry and one of the hardest working kids that I've known and had the privilege to be around. And I think that gives him a real chance to not only exceed, and excel this year in high school, but when he goes to Ohio State, I really expect him to have a great year, great career there. And I think that he's a kid that we may see drafted down the road. I think he's got the stuff. I think he's got the work ethic, and I think that if he puts it all together, he's a kid that can get paid to play this game.
Yeah. All right. I mean, we're looking forward to it. I mean, he's clearly a very talented kid. You guys are doing spectacular. I think, again, 9-3, 5-1 in conference. You guys got a few more weeks left in the regular season before the tournament starts, and best of luck to you guys as you continue your journey.
Awesome.
Ryan, thank you so much for it.
Chase.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
it so much.
Thank you.
All right. That's going to do it for this episode of Chasing the Game. Be sure to check out our other episodes on the WTOL 11 Plus app. You can also find us on YouTube and on Spotify. And we'll see you guys next time.